In this last lesson on Python and XML, we're going to demonstrate how to use SACS API to search for elements in a XML file. So let's get started. We're going to call this program findelement.py. So the first thing we're going to do is import some libraries. So we'll do that first. First thing we're going to do is write a helper method. This method is going to clear out some of the space we find when we use the characters method of the content handler. If you remember in the last lesson, we had a lot of white space that was found within the characters of all the elements. So we're going to clear all that out using that command, which will clear out white space. So our class is going to be called findContent, which is passed in a content handler. First thing we do is define the constructor. This first line, self-defined, will be the name of the element we're looking for. So like for the film's XML file, we could pass in title or director or even year for that matter. And I'll show you how that command line argument will be input in just a moment. This is a Boolean variable that will tell us if we're in the element we're looking for or not. And this last variable, found, will be the element that we're looking for, and we're going to use that to collect the characters that make up the content. Our start element method, I'll explain why we have to do that again in just a moment. Here, we're looking to see if the name of this element is the one we're searching for. If it is, then our inElement variable needs to be set to true or 1. Otherwise, make sure it's set at 0, so we'll just set it back to 0. In the characters method, first thing we do is we check to see if we're in the element. And then if we are, then we're simply going to keep adding characters into it. We do it like this because we're not sure if it's bringing in characters or whole strings at a time. So to be on the safe side, we write this self.found is equal to self.found plus, meaning concatenate, a character ch just in case. So no matter how we're getting in the data, it's going to be all stored in the variable by the time we're finished with that set of characters. And then finally, we have the endElement method. And here, we print the element if we found it. And we use the trim method to get rid of all the extra spaces. So that's the class. Now we're going to create a starter method. The first thing we do is we create a handler using our class. This is just a handler is just an instance of our findContent class. Here we're going to create a parser instance. And then when you do it that way, there's a set content handler method you have to set with the class that's going to be your content handler. In this case, handler is what we called it. The last step then is to parse the file. And we'll just hard code that in to keep the things that we're making variable to a limit. The last step is to get the program started. Here we get our system argument, which will be the element we're looking for. And then we call the helper method to get everything started with that command line argument. And that's all we have to do. So bearing any typos, which I wouldn't be surprised if there are one or two, let's save the file. Come back to our command line, type Python, findelement, py, title, and we see that it returns the two titles from our file. Let's do it on director this time. And there are our two directors. So that's how you use the SACS API with Python to search an XML file to find a particular element. This wraps up our chapter on XML and Python. And I encourage you, if you're interested in more, there's lots of documentation on the internet and in different Python books on working with XML, and I encourage you to look at those sources for more information.